Hey guys, what's up? It is about 2:40 p.m. on this December 6th, Wednesday, 2023. And I wanted to come on here because you can see the title in the thumbnail and the various pictures that help represent this. But I wanted to discuss, I was thinking about this, and I'm going to try the best that I can do in answering this since I'm not going off any bullet points or script. I'm going basically based off my own experiences, being a fan, and also just give my own general thoughts overall. But the question, obviously, that you see here is, why do writers and artists go the female shapeshifting slash melting route in their stories slash webcomics? Now, the reason I put female in the title here, and I say this with all due respect, no offense, because I know I probably talked about it before on numerous occasions, is basically because of the fact that a lot of the stories that you read at DeviantArt, you read via Patreon, you read at fanfiction.net, Ink Bunny, or wherever, a lot of them basically that go the shape-shifting melting route have females as the main protagonists that gain these powers or gain this ability, if you will. As I just fixed everything here temporarily. There we go. Just fixing a little bit of a picture here. There we go. Making sure it's all there. All right. Making sure there's no gaps or anything. But yeah, anyway, getting back on topic, basically, like I said, when you read those stories or you read those webcomics, you always notice, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, that the main female protagonist is the one that ends up with these powers of shape-shifting and melting. And if not, basically a combination of all of that together. But the question is, why do writers and artists go this route, though? Whether it's mainly female or on occasion male. Because one of the stories you could see at the bottom left corner, I think, depending on how you watch it, the bottom left corner of your screen, Wanderlust is a new story by Nextstar Comics, and they do their Patreon comics like every week, but they keep them all in the same area. Like they don't do it separately like some others do. They keep them all like, okay, we're just going to update it, if you will. But like with Wanderlust here, apparently from what I've read, the main character is a male. The main character is a male who gets who gets a subscription to a shape-shifting potion club, or a shape-shifting club that will send a potion his way and allow him to change into whoever he wants to be. That thus, the question at the bottom of, who do you want to be today? And there you go. But again, it's not just male characters or female characters. When it comes to this, it's basically the question of why. Why do writers and artists go the female shape-shifting melting route in those stories slash webcomics, especially if those webcomics and stories are of the very adult, erotic, SFW, NFSW variety? Like, why do they go that route in those cases? Well, I think the reason they go this route is mainly for the fact to really change things up, if you will. Really change things up. And what I mean by change things up, I'm talking about mainly the fact of, basically taking what would be a normal, softcore, hardcore, erotic story between a male and a female, or female and female, or male, depending if you, go that route. No offense. But, I think the reason they go, in this direction, why they utilize this trope, or these tropes, if you will, is because if you just go the normal route of, erotic, softcore, hardcore, NFSW, SFW stories, if you just go that normal route, then that moment of intimacy if you will, between the characters, that moment of intimacy between the characters, is going to be basically, just straightforward. It's just going to be straightforward to where it's like, all you have to do is imagine in your mind, okay, what position are they in now? And then if you need any idea of what position they might be in or how they're doing it, all you have to do, or tell yourself you have to do, is just look on the internet or tune into on demand on your television. Look at one of your premium channels that might still offer the late night stuff of the adult kind, and you'll pretty much get your idea. Of exactly what's going on between the participants in that very intimate moment. And this is why I think, artists and writers go, the route of female shapeshifting / melting, because of the fact that you could do a lot more, if you will. You can do a lot more with that trope, with that texture, added on top of what would be normal, eroticism, soft coreness and all that, but, intimacy, if you will, in that moment between a male and a female, female, male, depending, again, if you're into that, no offense. It creates more variety. It creates more, fun, in interesting situations. And, as a matter of fact, Trouble TRO, whose banner from Patreon is right there. That's a banner showing examples of some of the stories he works on, mainly all shape-shifting related. Trouble TRO did a Agent Pink Bedlam's Revenge 2 story, mainly an epilogue portion of it, as I open up my Coke here. Or Coca-Cola, that is. But he did the epilogue to Bedlam's Revenge 2, and it was mainly, the main focus of it was one of his characters, basically getting it on with Mr. Internet Man's character, Demonica. Demonica Veronica. And basically they were getting it on in a very shape-shifty and then later on gooey, liquidy way. And, and basically, one of the stories he did recently, as of last year, he's working on he's already wrote up the sequel. He's already wrote up the script for the sequel, from what I understand. From what I understand, he's already wrote up the sequel, and he's currently working on the renderings of it. One of the last stories that was more based in gooiness, latex, slime girlness, and all that was Science Experiment, which I talked about recently in a video, predicting exactly where it was going to go in the follow-up. And pretty much from what I heard him mention to some people, basically, because people were curious, like, how much more gooier and meltily is it going to be between the two ladies who gained these powers, or became, these latex, or these women of gooey slime girl latexness. Like how gooey and meltily from a lesbian NFSW perspective is the sequel going to be. And he basically said his answer was, there's going to be and his answer was basically, there's going to be a lot of that. That, there's going to be a lot more than what you got a sample of in the first part. Basically stating that, yeah, most of the story might end up being just that. But again, why would he go in that direction? Why would he choose to go in that direction? Well, the way the first story ended is one of the ladies that, was that gained these powers, her new, I guess you could say, body was nothing more, from head to toe, was nothing more than black, latex, gooey, I guess you could say, a figure is what it was. It was nothing more than a, humanoid, latex, drone, slime girl, humanoid figure. And what she did to basically get us hyped up for the sequel is she decided that the only way for her and her girlfriend now to kind of go somewhere more roomier and private for them to really get it on, was to take a vehicle and drive, but not take any of theirs because that'd be too suspicious, but instead create their own. And what she does is she runs into a wall and basically splats into goo, and after slish-sloshing her way, out of the goo that she's become, she basically slish-sloshes herself and rebuilds herself into a car that the other girl gets into by melting down on top of the hood and inserting herself into the car that the other girl became, and then driving off, saying that this is just the beginning. Now, basically, I bring that up because of the fact that, one of the lines that the other girl says after her friend turns into a car, she decides she's gonna shapeshift into a seductive, I guess you could say, seductress, if you will, seductress. But then she decides to go all gooey, like I said, just to enter into the car that her friends become. But one of the things she says before that is, "I can't wait to come inside of you." But she doesn't say it in a way that's erotic, if you will. She doesn't use the erotic term of it. She goes C-O-M-E, C-O-M-E, instead of the other way it's pronounced in an erotic way, or an erotic term. She says C-O-M-E instead of, the other interpretation of it. But yeah, she basically says that before she goes gooey to go into the car that her friend has become, and then reform back into the seductress that she's shapeshift into. I know that may have sounded a little bit more complicated than it should have, but the point is that's exactly why people like Trouble TRO goes this route, because by giving a character the ability to shapeshift, melt, if you will, and all that, especially in an erotic setting in the story, makes things a lot more interesting. Especially in his case, him being one of the three that you see at the bottom that does webcomics. The one on the right is Joven16's. That's a scene from his recent Nanoshift continuation, which he just started back up. And then, like I said, on the other side, you have Next Star's Wonderlust promotional image as well. But basically, he goes that route because it makes things a lot more interesting, a lot more intriguing. And in fact, going back to, like I said, about Agent Pink, the epilogue to Agent Pink 2, Bedlam's Revenge, between his, I think, what is it, his, I can't think of her name right now, Betty character, if you will, and Mr. Internet Man's Demonica character, is they shapeshift into different, personas before going into the latex gooey mode. And the way it ends is Demonica Veronica uses her powers to teleport another character of Trouble TRO's, Emily, who is basically the girlfriend, I guess you could say, of Betty. Teleport her into the location. And at first, Emily's like, she doesn't see anybody around except a gooey red and black, puddle on the bed. Until she feels something crawling up her leg and up her body, and then she gets the idea, oh, that's my friend, and that's that friend she talked about, on the bed mixed together as goo, because, she feels this black and red tendril, mixed together climbing up her body, and then she decides, okay, I'll join you guys, and, if you want to party, I'll still, that's fun. It's like, she says something like, okay, I guess you guys started without me, but you know what, I know how to party too. And she decides to go gooey as well and add herself to, as one of them described, the mix, if you will. And thus they become like a almost near fusion of black, red, and turquoise green puddles, if you will. But basically that's one of the ways Trouble TRO, one of the examples I should say that Trouble TRO utilizes this trope in his stories, especially I'm getting a little tongue tied here, especially if they are of the erotic kind, or at least they lend themselves to the erotic side of things, if you will, because it makes things more interesting, it makes things more intriguing, to see how creative in story the characters can get. Because you have these three girls, instead of doing a regular lesbian threesome, they decide to use their powers to get more creative, turn into different things, and mostly end it by being nothing more than a trio of colorful puddles of goop that confuse together into one person, if you will. And then on the right, like I said, that's a scene from the recent NanoShift, a chapter that Jovan 16 has been revisiting now. They haven't revisited it for about a year until recently, or returned to it and all that in about a year until recently. And in this story, basically the main character in the middle, her name is Jay, and that's basically a conclusion. That's the final page, if you will, of the recent NanoShift, where she's changing into another outfit. And long story short, she just came back as well in the story because she had basically gone into a comatose state as a puddle of liquid goo. And it wasn't until two people that she knows of, at least one of them, is able to restore her back to normal. We kind of wake her up, and now she's back into the frame of things, as far as the story goes. And according to Jovan 16, there will be some gooey, melty, slime girl eroticism, lesbian sex, if you will, I guess, in the story. There will be. But, he too, uses that trope, the shape-shifting, melting trope, to make things more interesting, because when he first started doing the NanoShift stories, one of the things that he did in NanoShift with Jay is he had Jay basically split in two, and Jay kind of had some self-loving going on. But what was interesting is he made the two parts that Jay became, he made them their own personalities. In other words, he made them into having their own identities, because they would talk about Jay as if she's separate from them, even though they know they're basically her split in two. So that's the other interesting thing as to why people do this. One of the story concepts they like to come up with is, they can, if they want their character to do so, they can split their character into two or three, and the two or three that they become, have their own distinct personalities. They're their own individuals, even though they're originally from one person, if you will. A good example of that is up here in the middle, on the left and on the top middle, if you will. These images on the left and the top middle are from Mr. Internet Man, and the two on the left are from his Walk on the Wild Side deal, where he crosses over. He crosses over with. He has this Demonica Veronica character cross over with another person's character called Ruby Walker. This character is created by Aunt Zeusser, or whatever. I do AZ, I'll just say for short. But anyway, Ruby Walker, AZ's character, in story, has fallen in love with Demonica after meeting her, and has become a real, I guess you could say, I wouldn't say sadist, but has developed a real fetish for the more liquidy, melty side of things of Demonica's powers. So Demonica says, okay, I'm going to let you have a taste of that, which is what Walk in the Wild Side is. And basically the end of it here is you see her giving her that ultimate taste, to the point that they end up fusing together into one. And this is just like, the first step where you see the sploosh word at. That's the first step of them becoming fused together. And the end result is them becoming one individual that doesn't, kind of has a little bit of amnesia, if you will, but you can tell even though they kind of have amnesia, it's mostly Ruby that's running things, even though she can't remember who she is. You know, she's kind of like in control. Because one of the things that the Fusion says is, towards the end of the comic, is all that matters is, that basically the identity crisis can wait, because all that matters, all that matters is, all that matters is she's whole and everything. It's like all that matters is the body that they're in, or that she has, and the powers. And then you see her kind of elasticate herself up the stairs to where she loses the humanoid form she's become, and kind of pulls herself onto a bed, and basically stays there and says, and basically says things like, like every movement is a delight. I don't want to say the other word, but a delight, if you will. And that she can basically feel like she's just one big giant puddle of joy. And then you see her kind of spread out on the bed like a lake, like she's become a lake on the bed, and saying that she might just stay that way for a while, which again shows you in story that the Ruby Walker character is more, or at least the Ruby Walker persona, is more in charge of the Fusion than Demonica Veronica is at that moment. Now the other one is from a recent picture he did, and that is of his character Veronica. Now, what's interesting about Mr. Internet Man's characters, his character Demonica Veronica, is when the character was first introduced, she had to rely on applying nightshade. Veronica would have to apply the nightshade lipstick to become Demonica. And if she wanted to really increase her powers, her being a succubus, mischievous elf or demon elf, she would have to temporarily suck out the life force, not the entire life force, but just enough of somebody, to the point that they would just end up like maybe with maybe they feel like they've had a hangover from drinking too much or something like that. I think that's how he described it one time. And mainly the fact that, by doing so, she, her power, Veronica's power as Demonica would increase, and she could do a lot more. Like, she would have a 12-hour limit, but she could do a lot more in 12 hours. She could do this, she could do that, so over time, her character has evolved. Mr. Internet Man has evolved her character to the point that Veronica, now no longer has to utilize the nightshade lipstick, because for doing it so long, the power has basically seeped into her body, and it's incorporated itself into her DNA, to where all she has to do now is think of what she wants to do and what she wants to become, and the rest is history. And she finds very creative ways to do it. Like, she'll melt down into a puddle of goop as herself, and then rise back up as Demonica, and so on and so forth. And like this here is an example of her meeting up with, I think, the Betty character from Trouble TRO, and them basically using their powers to clad themselves in latex and make, from head to toe, and make out, to the point that, as it's described, I think, by Mr. Internet Man, they lose themselves to the point that their minds and everything meld together, and they become something or someone completely different. And even one person mentioned in the, someone mentioned, in the comment section, that it looked like they had become, in this picture here, like I said, in the top middle, become like some kind of a sculpture or something. But again, he goes in these directions with his webcomics of Demonica Veronica, whether they're collabs or not. He goes in the direction of utilizing the female shapeshifting melting route, because of the fact that it makes things more, interesting. It makes things more creative. It makes things more fascinating. Like, it makes you wonder, especially if you gotta keep watching week by week or day by day. It makes you wonder, okay, like, what are they gonna do next? Like, how imaginatively crazy are the two individuals gonna get? Whether it's female, male, or male, female. It's like, you know, how inventively crazy are they going to get, you know, with these powers? You know, even if it's one or both. So, you know, that's why he also includes it as well, because there are times he has Veronica as the Monica split herself in two, either by melting down into a puddle and then she just rises up and separates herself or whatever. And then, like I said, the two that she becomes has their own personalities. In the end result, sometimes, if not most times, is they make out with each other, if not have, you know, intimacy with each other. Thus, in a way, she's making intimacy with herself. But the two that she becomes has their own distinct personalities. Like one example is she becomes two girls, one in a cat girl outfit, one in a devil outfit. They make out, and then as a bonus continuation to that story, you know, basically they, you know, lose their clothing, you know, because of, you know, the basically Demonica Veronica split in two. They basically dissolve their clothing, and basically both naked as jaybirds, if you will. One's a redhead, one's a black. One's a redhead, one's a black-haired girl, one's a redhead girl. And the question that they ask each other as they're looking at each other seductively is, you know, what do you think? And one of them says, I think little Veronica is going to have a hard time forgetting this night. And then they start kissing, saying, or they start making out, saying, you know, okay, well then let's give her, you know, a night she's not going to forget, if you will. So in other words, they understand exactly where they come from, but they talk about where they came from, or who the person they came from, you know, as someone separate from them. But they know that once they do the thing and really, you know, have fun, get intimate and all that, that, you know, during the night, they're going to probably end up whole again as Veronica, and Veronica is going to remember that night of intimacy, basically with herself. In fact, one person commented in the comment section that, oh, Veronica's going to wake up very sore in the morning. But, you know, again, this is why Mr. Internet Man does this, because of the fact that it makes things more intriguing. Like, you know, by having Demonica Veronica do that, split herself in two, you know, it makes you it begs the question, like, would you get it on with yourself if you could split in two and become two separate entities? Would you get it on with yourself? And the question would be, yeah, maybe you would. But that's not the only example. Another example on the bottom portion, on the bottom middle, and on the right, if you will, is from DeviantArt. DeviantArt, and she's known for doing for years the Metamorphosized to Malleability series, but she's also done some other series as well, all dealing with characters that have shape-shifting powers. And in her main series, Metamorphosized to Malleability, which I've done various reviews of here on YouTube, basically, long story short, the character that you see here, you know, turning into the scooter and basically is the bathwater, if you will. The character there, Briella, you know, gained the powers of, you know, shape-shifting and everything to where she could become anything she wants, even turn into goo and everything. And later on in the story, she gets a girlfriend in Crystal, and that's where things can really get more interesting and intriguing, because this, you know, there are moments in the chapters, or the shifts, as DeviantArt calls them, or chapters, if you will, to where there are moments to where her and, you know, where Briella and Crystal will get it on, and Briella will use her powers to really, you know, give Crystal a pleasurable, you know, moment that she'll never forget. You know, and I mean sometimes pleasurable to the point that it's like, woohoo, you know, batten down the hatches, if you will. And as I've said before in my reviews, I've always believed that what DeviantArt has been doing as well is throwing hints out there that Crystal's going to gain powers as well. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. But what she does is she uses this relationship the two have to show us, you know, an example, you know, when the moment is right, of how creative both sides could get, you know, when they're in intimacy. Like how creative, you know, and how far they can go when they're, you know, really getting it on with each other. You know, and stuff like that. I mean, I think there's even a chapter where Briella turns into a male and gets it on with Crystal, if you know what I mean. But most of the time it's, you know, the lesbian direction that they go in, and that's pretty much it. And again, it's very creative. And again, even though it's written, it's typed up, it's literature, if you will, that you have to read. It's literature you have to read. Basically, you can imagine in your mind exactly how far they go. Or if you're fortunate enough, you'll get an image that represents maybe a certain scene in that chapter / shift of Metamorphosized to Malleability. Like, for example, this is just part of her Malleable Mondays gallery. And here you have Briella right in the bottom middle, basically turning into a scooter. That's giving you an idea that not only can she use her powers to really like make her girlfriend feel comfortable, like, you know, that's Crystal soaking in her right there, you know, make her girlfriend feel comfortable, if not very comfortable, in a very erotic way, but that she could also become anything else. Like, she can be something her girlfriend can ride to work on, and then that's it, or whatever. But, you know, Metamorphosized to Malleability isn't the only story she does. She does some other ones. Like every May, she has the Melting Mii series, where you have, originally you have Mii gain the powers of shapeshifting and melting, mostly melting. But then you have Zara, you know, gain them, and they become, who's a friend, basically girlfriend. And they have intimate craziness, if you will. And now you have an Elizabeth character coming into the fray where you could have a threesome right there. And you just imagine in your mind, because it's all typed up literature-wise, it's all typed up to where you got to read it. You imagine in your mind of like how creative, you know, Mii and Zara, and now along with Elizabeth, can be. You know, can be from fusing together to really just like having, you know, a very erotic time of the NFSW and beyond factor, if you know what I mean. But that's not the only one she's done as well. She's done some others. Like one of the more popular, one of the other ones outside of Metamorphosized to Malleability is becoming Unlimited, where it's about a guy who gains the powers to shapeshift, Clayface like powers, and he becomes basically anything he can think of. But the issue during the story is he ends up creating these different personas that, you know, gain their own sentience, their own individuality. He creates these characters, these alter egos that gain their own sentience, personalities and everything, to the point that it almost wipes them out of existence, till they come to a compromise and realize, hey, we could still each have what we want, but we have to work together, and they kind of, and that's how the story kind of ends, on a happy note, to where when they get the chance to work together, they'll have, and they have the opportunity, they'll have some very creative erotic fun with each other and with whoever accepts them as who they are. Getting some more Coca-Cola there. But that's just another example, like I said, as to, but that's just another example of, DeviantArt going that route. Now, there are others that I have yet mentioned, like Antzora's, if you will, goes this route as well with her Morphica character. She goes this route as well with her Morphica character, even collabing with Mr. Internet Man at times on various stories. She goes that route, which is very creative and everything, and it's fun to see. And what's interesting about the Morphica character, who's the alter ego of I think her name's Christy or something like that. I gotta go back and look. What's interesting about the Morphica character is she looks like a slime girl and everything, but she can shapeshift and melt, as much as she wants, and evaporate, because mainly she's a shapeshifter slime girl that is made of Yem. That's Y-E-L-M. Yem, if you will, or Yelm. She's made of that. And so she can become anything and exist, I guess, anywhere or something like that. But yeah, they do stories like that too, to where they make things a little bit more interesting, if you will, for the character. In fact, one of the collab images that they did with Mr. Internet Man has Veronica as Demonica soaking in a tub, and the tub, the bath water, is Morphica. The bath water is Morphica, you know, and everything. They kind of kiss in the bathtub and everything, with Morphica lifting her head up on a tenderol to kiss Demonica. But yeah, these are just various examples of what I'm talking about. These are just various examples of what I'm talking about as to why writers and artists go the female shape-shifting melting route, if you will, when it comes to the stories. You know, these are just examples right here of, you know, why they go this route, why they, you know, why they choose to, you know, incorporate, you know, this trope into their stories. Mainly because of the fact that if they just make it a, you know, regular softcore, hardcore, NFSW, SFM, you know, NFSW, SFW erotic story, you know, where you know, okay, there's going to be a erotic scene between the male and the female, or the male and the male, or the female and female, you know that it's just going to be something that you could just look on the internet and find. You can tune in to late night programming, DVR wise, on demand wise, and find. You know it's just going to be something like that. So by adding in the idea that the female protagonist, or even the male protagonist, but mainly the female, no offense, all due respect, no offense, all due respect when I bring this up, you know, when you add in the fact that the protagonist, male or female, but mostly female at times, you know, has the ability to shapeshift and melt down and everything and do things like that, you know, it makes things, especially when it comes to them having an erotic time with the significant other, it makes things a lot more interesting. It makes things a lot more intriguing for people to want to read and want to, you know, pay attention to and everything, you know, as time goes on. I mean, there's not a moment, honestly, where people, when they're reading, you know, they're reading the resurgence of Pink Benefits. Pink Benefits just got brought back by Trouble TRO. There's not a moment to where they're like, okay, you know, okay, all this story's good and everything, but let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the good stuff, you know, and everything. Because they want to see exactly how far Betty and Emily, both having these powers, can go, you know, with the significant others. You know, the same with, you know, Joven 16 and Nanoshift. Same thing with Nextstat and any of their stories. You know, they want to see how far they're going to go. Even when they're reading it, they want to see how far, you know, DeviantArt is going to go with Briella and Crystal, or whatever original stories they come up with. You know, Mr. Internet Man's the same thing. You know, how far will he go with his Demonica character and whoever he collabs with, you know, in the future, or how far will he go if he lets his Demonica character do the split in 2, split in 3 thing and go from there. You know, that's what makes them want to tune in and read more, look at it more, if you will. So to me, that's why writers and artists go that female shape-shifting melting route in their stories in webcomics, or even the male route, or the male shape-shifting, you know, shape-shifting melting route in the stories and webcomics, if not both, you know, that's why they go the route, period. Because of the fact that, you know, it makes things more interesting. It makes things more interesting. It makes them more intriguing. You know, it makes you wonder, you know, like, okay, we're going to see it, but if it's going to come back, you know, again, it makes you wonder, okay, we're going to see it. We know it's happening. And if you see it happen just briefly once, and you know it's coming again, it makes you wonder, like, okay, how far are they going to take it the next time they go this route? You know what I'm saying? It makes you contemplate what's next. It makes you want to, you know, it makes you want to, you know, as I mentioned, pay attention to what happens in the near future. But that to me is basically why we, you know, we have people like this go right. People, you know, like the ones I've mentioned, and other writers and artists go this route because it makes things more interesting, more intriguing, and really keeps your attention on what's going to be happening next and wondering what's going to happen next. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to bring that up, get that out of my system. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you heard about some of the people I've talked about? Mr. Internet Man, Ant Zorizon, DeviantArt, Nextstar, Trouble TRO, Joven16. Let me know if you've heard of any of them down below in the comment section. If you will, let me know what some of the stories, or even in the live chat when you're listening to this, let me know which some of these are your favorite stories and stuff. You can find this on YouTube, hopefully, without any issues, and you'll find it also on VENMO. You'll also find it on VENMO if there is some issues as well. But anyway, though, guys, just let me know what your thoughts are. I want to know what you guys feel about, how you guys feel about this. What are some of your favorite stories? Have you heard of these people? And do you agree with what I had to say here? Let me know down below. And until next time, I am out.